Right, we'll start by setting our motivation. Sangye chudon zogi chunam la janchu padu dani kapsuchi dagi chunyen gi be sonam ki rola penchi sangye drupa sho sangye chudon zogi chunam la janchu padu dani kapsuchi dagi chunyen gi be sonam ki Rola Penjia Sangye Drupa Sho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So today we're going to do just a very brief review of the things from Tuesday, just so we don't lose any of them. And then we'll move on to a bit more Shakyamuni Buddha in depth and looking at some more just key concepts in Tantra and fleshing some of those out. So we talked about how Buddhist Tantra is for Mahayana practitioners to accelerate the path to enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the point of Tantra is Buddhahood. Buddhahood quickly because sentient beings are suffering. So all of these practices rely on having an understanding of and a conviction in the three principal aspects of the path. So you need renunciation, the determination to be free from samsara, free from negative habitual tendencies, to want to emerge from cyclic existence completely, which means you have that amazing combination of disillusionment and hope. Right? You have a sense of samsara is actually not fixable. We do what we can to be of benefit in the world, but really our samsaric minds and our samsaric aggregates are bound to suffering until we overcome karma and delusion. So renunciation knows that, and that's the foundation, and it underpins everything in Tantra, which means then you go on to utilize the energy that accompanies negative states of mind like attachment, anger, and ignorance, and it's not problematic. So then we have bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, or the good heart, or some translators say the spirit of enlightenment, or the awakening mind. All those are synonymous. And this bodhicitta is really saying the point of my path is for others. It's for all sentient beings. I'm included in all sentient beings, but at this stage of my development, the only thing I can really do is some symptoms relief, some soothing. If I'm a Buddha, I can be of direct, accurate benefit to sentient beings without mistakes. So I want to become completely enlightened, which implies omniscience. And that way I can benefit sentient beings accurately, specifically and perfectly. Then the correct view, the wisdom realizing emptiness, this is preventing fundamentalist thinking. This is helping us cut the root of samsara. And this is really making sure that we're approaching practice with a sense of awareness of dependent arising. That the practice, ourself, its results, all of it is dependently arisen. Not one element stands alone, divorced from context, divorced from parts. So if you've got these three and you understand them in a, relatively clear way, you have conviction that they're important and, fundamentally to your practice, then you're ready to start approaching Tantra. So as you look at those, do you feel stuck with any one of those or want to clarify any one of those? All clear enough?
I would like to know more about renunciation. If renunciation contain only the good things, because sometimes you're attached to your depression or bad things.
I mean, renunciation is the determination to be free from samsara. Okay, so what is samsara? I'm asking you.
Yeah, samsara is the collection of emotion and disturbing emotion and karma. So, and it's dependently arising, but Yeah, almost is suffering, but you, I mean, we are attached to this, to the happiness that we have, but less to the suffering. The suffering, we want to push it away. And renunciation, oh, I think I get it. Renunciation is is like no push and pull. So you leave everything as it happens.
Well, sort of. And the thing is that I think that we know a lot of the concepts, but we haven't connected them all. Right? And this is really common for Dharma practitioners, is that we've heard a lot of public talks, maybe hundreds, thousands of public talks from amazing lamas. We've read all sorts of books. We have tons of content, but we haven't connected the pieces yet, right? I think this is really common to all of us. And we didn't necessarily approach our studies in a linear way. It was kind of a bit here and a bit there. So I think an important stage is to really become a lot more specific with these things that seem basic, because the more specific you can be, the more deeply you can practice them. Samsara, Ladan, just so you're more tidy, right? Samsara is the 5 contaminated, appropriated aggregates bound by karma and disturbing emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is samsara? You are samsara, I assume. I am definitely samsara. Probably most of us are samsaric beings. So we talk about samsara as if it's the external environment, but it's because of the way our mind works that we see a contaminated environment and engage it with it in a contaminated way, and therefore suffer. Okay, so the determination to be free is wanting to cut karma and disturbing emotions. So you need wisdom realizing emptiness to cut karma and disturbing emotions. Where do karma and disturbing emotions come from? Viewing the self in a misunderstood way. Yeah. The reifying view of the perishing aggregates, right? So all of these concepts, we have to really sit with it and make sure you understand the linkages. Yeah. And then when you have those linkages really tidy, you can ask yourself, what is it that I'm attached to? Who is it that's attached even more deeply? Yeah. And then we get into your very excellent point, which is you can get attached to being a depressed person, or your depression, or being a survivor of this or an advocate of that. And that all becomes part of the wrong fixation we have on our identity. And that's part of what we need to break through in order to become liberated and eventually enlightened. So definitely, it's not like you're just attached to the happiness of samsara. We're also attached to any number of components of our samsaric filter.
I think I get it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, again and again, no problem. Sneh, go ahead.
Venerable. My question is on, bodhicitta, and I've been grappling with this for a while. Whenever His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, speaks about bodhicitta, he has so much. How he says it gives him the juice to keep going, and it energizes him and gives him confidence. And I think, how does he see it? Because it doesn't do any of that for me. I just feel tired, when I think of the scope of what it entails and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how is he looking at bodhicitta that it gives him so much enthusiasm and he's in it for the long haul. And I'm just
trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
Not hurt anybody. Yeah, I'm trying to be
exactly.
Nice. Yeah. And I certainly cannot speak for His Holiness how he has that magic joy, but it's joyous effort, and joyous effort, delight in virtue. I think it comes from a solid conviction in the big picture. And this solid conviction in the big picture of the great enlightenment of all sentient beings, and this is my life's work and my life's purpose and the way in which I connect to sentient beings, it trims off all the excess, all of the busy things in the life, all of the stressful things in the life. If they're seen within the context of I'm working for the welfare of all sentient beings, in order to do that, I must become enlightened, then the small stuff does not get to you. And whether sentient beings are happy in the moment or not is kind of irrelevant, because you've got the broad view. Sometimes your strategies will work and sometimes they won't. Sometimes your practice will be focused and committed and stable, and sometimes your focus gets kind of fuzzy and drifty and whatever. But just having a purpose in life gives you energy. And so sometimes when we're lacking energy, we feel like we have to force it, when actually we want to go back a few steps and ask ourselves, do I believe that transformation is possible? Do I believe I can be a powerful condition for others? Because those are very important components in believing that enlightenment is possible. And sometimes when we're with other people, we're like, well, it seems like some people never change. Seems like some people are fully stuck in their ways and are committed to their negative states of mind, and even, increase them and get worse over time. And I'd like to think that people get wiser as they get older, but I know a lot of old people who are hard work to be with. Yikes, am I becoming one of them? Am I actually getting any better? And you look at your own practice and you think, actually, I'm not sure, because in the beginning of my practice, I was all kind of sweet and like, a sponge for content and so committed and so invested and just a little sweetie. And now I'm a little bit of a grumpy bugger. Maybe I've gotten worse. Oh my God. So these are the sort of thoughts we want to sit with a little bit. Is change possible? Can I be a condition for others? And the answer, of course, is it depends. Yeah. Do you want to? Are you putting effort into that? And is the change that you seek something kind of with tangible steps or with movement that you've already seen small versions of? And you realize, yeah, chapters of my life where I've put in committed effort, but also I've had a lot of, supports around me. There's been cognitive shifts. There's been negative habits I actually don't do anymore or do hardly ever. And that is remarkable given how short life is. Why would that end if the effort doesn't end? And then you think about other people, and you cannot change people. You cannot force people to be better. But the people who love you and respect you are influenced by you. And the people you're with every day in a coworker setting or in a living situation or in a community, they're impacted by how you are, whether they are able to articulate that or not. We have an influence. I mean, we certainly know what it's like to be around someone who is hard work. What if someone is amazing and kind and loving? We don't really register what a positive influence that has on the group. We kind of take it for granted, like that's how we should always be. But it changes everything. I mean, I think sometimes even just silly jobs I had as a teenager, the difference in the work culture when you had a kind boss and when you had a crap boss, or how different a shift was if you were working with someone who wanted to collaborate as opposed to working with someone who just wanted to do the bare minimum. Just something simple like being a barista or something. Like, imagine working for the welfare of sentient beings, remembering what a powerful influence we are on each other, and holding that. It's like a type of responsibility that's joyful. It's a joyful responsibility because you think, actually, all my little everyday moments and choices about being kinder and more open-hearted have an impact. Nothing is lost. And even if people don't realize the benefit I bring to a situation, the benefit is there. And also, if I'm not on my game, I can really hurt people and bring down the room and change the vibe and kind of suck all the air out if I'm not careful. So that kind of like taking responsibility, it shouldn't feel heavy, and that's how it usually feels. So if you can kind of play around with chapters of your life where responsibility felt happy. Yeah, and sometimes it's when you're a host for a party of people you love and you want them to all have a good time. Yeah, and so it's your responsibility, but you're really like looking forward to it. Like, oh, that one friend loves that one dip I make. I'm going to make that one dip they love, right? Or this other person will love this new patio furniture I got. They'll be so comfortable, like ridiculous things, but like it makes you so happy to think of the enjoyment others will have from your efforts. Yeah. And of course, attachment and expectation creep in and ruin all your fun. But on a good day, when you've been open and expansive, the joy of those days, coming back to then bringing the spiritual path to it, I think that's where you get the momentum. Yeah.
Thank you. That was such a great example to make it real for me about, taking responsibility and putting the effort for a friend, which I just did like at 4:30 in the morning because I knew she loved it. And it didn't, it was a pleasure. Like,
yeah, it is. And there's a thing that can happen to us when we think of all sentient beings. It's too abstract. Think of the sentient beings that you love so much, those like handful of people you have easy rapport with, those handful of people who know you so well, and just the delight you have when you can help, and just the delight you can have when you're bringing them some joy. And then you take them as your little guinea pig example and think, that's the experience and feeling I want for all sentient beings. So rather than starting with all sentient beings and then slowly bringing it to your everyday life, start with your everyday life and gradually expand out, and then it's got that like, tangible quality.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And really, I think about karmic connections a lot, because otherwise I can slip into the laziness of thinking there are already Buddhas. Why do I need to become a Buddha? Why can't I just achieve nirvana and stay out of trouble? Right? And not suffer anymore and not hurt anybody? Why can't I just like rest in nirvana? The Buddhas have it covered, don't they? No. Why? Not from a lack of ability from their side, right? It's a lack of karmic connection with certain sentient beings. They, of course, have karma with all sentient beings on one sense, but I mean, I'm sure when we were new Dharma students, we went to our friends and were like, oh my God, you guys, you have to do this. This is so cool. And some of your friends were like, that's great. I don't care. Shut up. Or they're like politely listening, right? They have no interest. But maybe one or two of your friends saw how delighted you were and you dragged them along to something, and then they were happy with it too. And now you're Dharma buddies. But they might not have ever made the linkage without, you were the linking factor. So you think, I need to become enlightened. Actually, for those sentient beings, I have these strong karmic connections with, good and bad, because that means my radius and impact of influence is a lot more encompassing than maybe even the Buddhas themselves, because maybe it's been a very long time since there was a karmic connection between them. So how can I link them back up? Lots of people see His Holiness and see a sweet old man. They don't see the Buddha of compassion or impute the Buddha of compassion, or even just see his amazing sort of humanitarian work or his amazing scholastic abilities or his incredible patience. They just see a sweet old man. The fact that we see more things in His Holiness is karmic as much as it is anything else. So that also increases your bodhicitta, is to think, I have responsibility for these like dear people in my life, some of whom are much nicer people than me. Right? Much nicer, much smarter, much more capable, but they haven't met or connected with the Dharma. Maybe if I integrate my path deeper and deeper, there will be an influence. And no doubt there already is in a subtle way. So you say that to yourself without becoming a missionary, right? Without advertising, without getting weird, right?
Yeah, thank you. That's so helpful to make it just real.
Yeah, it's important. We gotta make it real, or we lose the oomph.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, any others about the three principal aspects of the path and why you absolutely need them if you're going to practice Tantra at all? Is it clear why you need them? Yeah. And then it theoretically goes without saying, but maybe not goes without saying, you need refuge. Yeah, and having refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as your primary source of spiritual refuge doesn't mean that you can't look at other forms of wisdom or explore different forms of wisdom. It means it's your primary hub of internal refuge. And of course, the real refuge is the Dharma, and mainly the Dharma that you have integrated, because that is what will make you protected from suffering, is the training you've done on your own mind. So when we're really thinking about refuge, we have to ask ourselves, how proactive am I being with my path? If I'm kind of getting into a passive mentality of just like, Buddha's help me, we've slipped into some old training or some old socialization, which is not as empowered as Buddhism is. So we have to kind of like make our refuge real, not kind of just wait for it to become so. Yeah. So all of these can just be happy, deep thoughts in an armchair. They don't have to be a meditation. They don't have to be a book that you read. They need to be yours. You've read a lot, you've been to a lot of teachings. Now, how do you make these yours and integrate them? We can't miss the wisdom of reflection. We have the wisdom of hearing, the wisdom of meditation, but we forget the wisdom of reflection. So, walking the dog, sitting in an armchair, like today I was lying under the ceiling fan, right? Just going, thoughts, right? Because it was so hot. But I thought, well, here's a good way to use my time in between things, just thoughts well overheated. And I'm thinking about the hell realms and thinking about how the minds of sentient beings in the hell realms have more capacity for pain. And so this is nothing compared to what they're experiencing. If I was reborn there today, would I be able to have the strength of mind I have in this moment, which is already under threat by just a little too hot, And even if I don't believe in hell realms in a literal way, I do personally, but even if you make them metaphoric, think, well, what about just in 5 years from now or 10 years from now? It might get hotter. It might get worse, right? It probably will. We need to make our minds strong now so that these external influences don't steal our peace. But, so these are interesting thoughts to have while overheated in the middle of the day in Santa Cruz, Boulder Creek specifically.
I just wanted to make a bit of a reflection, actually.
Yeah.
The thing sometimes that I find the most difficult is actually getting it from here to here. The experience of it, like intellectually, thinking about it, reflecting about it, but making that transition between my head and my mind.
Yeah, 100%. Some of it's repetition. Some of it isn't repetition. Some of it's sitting with the thing you've understood and then bringing your own life wisdom to it and seeing how it marries up, and really kind of actively letting yourself wrestle with it and finding points in your life that prove the truth of these things you've heard a million times. Yeah. Or even just kind of getting the question clearer, even if you're not finding the answer, just kind of getting like the more and more condensed, pithy form of the abstract question. I was thinking about in the study years when I was at Chenrezig, Eleanor, and we did all of that like really intensive study, I was reading through some old transcripts and I realized I kept asking the same question again and again, year after year, in a slightly more refined way. And it got deeper and shorter each year until finally I got the answer that finally it made sense to me. And I realized, my teacher had given me the correct answer. Of course, each time I asked, I just couldn't understand it. But it also needed me to get sharper about what was my doubt actually. Because sometimes there's an emotional component to the question that actually isn't intellectual, and that's harder to find sometimes. Do you find that's true?
Yeah, and one of the things that I do find difficult is I'm really aware that we don't preach Buddhism, in its who we are and how we behave, and of course in our minds. But also I tend to want to hide it in some cases, my practice in a way, because my family already think I'm a bit weird. I know that as Buddhists we don't preach and we don't, proselytize. And there are times when my family think I'm weird enough, so I don't talk about it, And I think even like saying I'm going to do a retreat, I don't tell them because I don't want them to think I'm a pious kind of, I don't even know what to call it really. But just, so that for me is an issue.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, you're reading the room, you're being sensitive to the people in your life, and that some of these concepts actually could be alienating to them because they don't have the same context and life experience as you. But what you do is you model your path every day, and they are influenced by that, even though they never hear the words of how you got that way. I mean, I can imagine how many of your relatives are just a lot more aware of interdependence and a lot kinder and a lot more compassionate having known you. You know, people lift their game when someone is in alignment with a path in the room. You know, they might naturally stop gossiping quite as much or in such a harsh, critical way. They might subtly adjust and kind of lift into better ethics just because you're there, but you don't realize that because you don't see them when you're out of the room, you know?
Yeah.
So in that way, never underestimate your influence.
Okay. Thank you.
So we just briefly touched on how in Tantra, it's a path with similar features to the result, especially the form body. And next week when we do Chenrezig, we're going to talk more about the 4 bodies of the Buddha and how that's related to your tantric practice. But it's important to keep in mind these 4 purities that are embedded in all tantric practice, because what you're doing is adopting the attitude that the result of Buddhahood is already here. So you have this complete purity of environment, which is why you visualize a mandala. So you're adopting the attitude that everything is pure and perfect and climate change has been miraculously ended and that everything is at peace and it's an idyllic utopia and everyone gets along and all the sounds are beautiful and kindness prevails, even though you know that's not the case. You're really using your imagination to think, how could it be if afflictions were gone? And just like every kind of hokey, positive thinking, pop psychology nonsense, there is some grain of truth in those overly simplistic forms, which is if you can visualize it, it makes it closer to reality. Now, we don't want to get weird and kind of go into a fundamentalist kind of prosperity gospel weirdness or like fundamentalist weirdness and think I'm making it so, I'm manifesting it in a little bit of a new age way. Don't go that way with it. Feel like each time you visualize a mandala, you're planting a seed for that to be the case in the future. Planting a seed and planting a seed. And the same is true of the body. So you're visualizing the body of the deity. Before you have the empowerment, you visualize it in the space in front, one in nature with your guru. Later, when you have the empowerment, you see yourself as the deity, one in nature with the deity and guru. But in both cases, what you're doing is imagining perfect health, perfect well-being, perfect sort of abilities physically, and really planting the seed for that to be the case. Because the only reason our body hurts, the only reason that our body is dysfunctional is because of karma. It's a body born from karma. So if it wasn't, it wouldn't be so darn uncomfortable all the time. Yeah. And then similarly with resources, when you're creating the cause to have resources and for there to be resources in the environment, you need to actually make them, even if only on a mental level. And then the activities, this is the more abstract part. And this is usually the visualization during the mantra recitation time. So in most practices, there's a point at which you pause adding anything to the visualization, you pause doing prayers, and you just switch to doing the mantra, right? And during the mantra, what you're doing is usually a sending of light rays and a gathering back of light rays in any number of forms. And what this is doing is creating the cause to benefit others and creating the cause to meet your teachers again and again. So when you're sending and gathering, it's not just a nice light, love and light sort of, bliss zone thing to think about. You're planting karmic seeds to actually be of benefit to others in this direct way. So in order to achieve the resultant state, that is the union of the 2 enlightened bodies, it is essential to engage in a path characterized by the union of method and wisdom. So the 2 enlightened bodies being the form body and the wisdom body, or the Rupakayas and the Dharmakayas, these are the result of practicing method and wisdom. So when you're doing these 4 complete purities, you're doing them with an awareness of emptiness at every stage. So when you look at that, this is getting into a little bit more nuts and bolts of tantric sadhanas. Do you have any questions about these? Does it need to kind of process a little bit longer and maybe see it in a sadhana a few more times? And then maybe we can talk about it.
Those are, sorry, I have a question. Those
go
are the purity of environment, body, resources, and activity are the seed that we are planting while we are doing sadhana.
Yes.
Yes. And not all, I mean, not on daily basis, day-to-day life. We don't think of it as we are just being nice or making the seed, as you said. Is it? Am I clear at what am I at?
It's a more elevated version than just like, may you be well and happy. It's really understanding wellness and happiness come from practicing the path. May the seeds for enlightenment be in their minds. And may I be an active, powerful condition for that to be the case. People still have responsibility for their own lives and their own choices, but we can be a very powerful condition. So you're kind of like being the Buddha in real time, even though you're going to be the Buddha in the future. Because time itself also is relative. So this is, all kind of like, it's kind of heady business. But I think that when you practice it sincerely, once again, you need to think of the people in your life suffering now that you know, right? Think of the person in your life who has crippling debt, who is totally stressed out about their finances, maybe in complete denial about it, and has some hoarding tendencies. Do we not all have that person in our life somewhere? Probably, right? Do we not have someone who has an adolescent child in their life who is angsty and full of depression and on the edge of suicide and, self-harm and cutting behaviors and identity crisis? Surely we have someone like that in our life somewhere, right? Like, really think of them. Think of them on purpose and think, I am sending them happiness and the causes of happiness, meaning the seeds for enlightenment, meaning connection to the spiritual path. And there's all sorts of interesting questions that can arise around like consent, and even the idea that if you've ever had a really nice, sweet Christian person say to you, I'll pray for you, and you get kind of like please don't, that feels creepy. Can you not? Right? Have you ever, I don't know if you've had that experience. I've had that experience. And, I feel like they mean well, but part of me is kind of like, ugh. I don't know what you're aspiring to or what you're doing there. Or some like very well-intended like Reiki practitioner is like, I'll send you some Reiki. And I'm like, no, I'm full. Right. So you want to be aware of things like consent when you're sending out light rays, but be aware of like, in accordance with their minds. You're sending out light, help, support, like a Buddha would. A Buddha would do it in accordance with their mind, with their disposition, the way they want to learn, the way they need to transform, not in some imposed way from your egocentric ideas of right and wrong. Yeah, so elevate it, basically, is the point. Yeah, Christine, go ahead. Sure.
Good evening, Yonten. You say, especially the form body. So you're talking about the Rupakaya there, and so this is when can you talk a little bit more about why it's more specific to the Rupakaya and the form body? I'm not understanding that.
Well, the visualization is visualizations of form. Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So it's not the
form.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And the thing about these images is that, we see a tanka or a postcard or something, and we need to think of it three-dimensionally made of light, but that same kind of proportion, the same hand gestures, the same colors as we've seen in the Tibetan art forms, without getting tight and lost in it in a fundamentalist way, but realizing that these images came from the enlightened mind. And so they have a particular power in thinking of them in those particular proportions, colors, and hand gestures. So it's not to say there are not a million other colors, forms, hand gestures that would also do the trick. It's just you don't want to kind of get too loosey-goosey about it. Try and be as specific as you can, which of course makes you ask the question, what if I can't visualize? What if I'm a terrible visualizer? What if I have aphantasia and I can't visualize whatsoever? Don't worry about it. It's about the intention primarily. Yeah, the intention to visualize in the way that you've seen. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And, sometimes like there are better days and worse days in the practicing the sadhanas. Some days though, on better days, I get a feeling, like almost like I feel something, like an energy. It's very subtle and it's not like, oh, wow. But what is that? Could that be the energy of, what is that there's a different, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I'm assuming I know what you mean. I have no clarification, but I mean, the first simple thing is when you sit properly and you try to focus, whether it's shamatha or tantra or any meditation, if you're sitting properly with straight back, not rigid, and you're focusing the best you can without getting tight, having good relaxation, the knots around your chakras release a tiny bit, or they kind of stop being so constrictive. So the energy is flowing more smoothly and you're like, oh, hey, wow, in its natural state, I'm not too bad, right? In my natural state, my mind and my body actually don't suffer as much. That's nice, and sometimes you get a really, it's not even like a huge bliss. It's just kind of really gentle bliss of just settling. Yeah, and that actually could be the way that we live all the time before we have any realizations. Yeah, just kind of like, or at least more regularly, I should say. Probably need realizations for it to be a stable thing throughout, but it's just the power of doing the practice with that razor's edge combination of not too tight, not too loose. Yeah, and sometimes we strike that balance and we get that kind of sweet spot in our meditation, and then the body is happier than usual, the mind is happier than usual, in that deep, contented, stable way.
Oh, interesting. So it has to
do
with letting go of the knots and releasing so there's an energetic aspect to it, and the wind energy being able to move. Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, think of the opposite. Like if you have anxiety and like it constricts at your heart or it constricts at your stomach, and you can almost feel it, even though there's not like an organ there getting tight, and yet there's a hole in your chest or a pit in your stomach. That's similarly the knots around your central channel going, and that is uncomfortable, as we all know. Yeah. Okay, so this is vocabulary that's probably quite clear, but just to make sure we didn't lose anybody. Before we do the practice again, we'll do it a little bit more in depth this time. Shakyamuni Buddha, historical Buddha, right? The fourth of the 1,000 founding Buddhas of this present world age, born a prince of the Shakya clan in North India or Nepal. He taught the Sutra and Tantra path to liberation and full enlightenment, the founder of what came to be known as Buddhism. So we say he taught Sutra and Tantra. He taught in languages similar to Pali and languages similar to Sanskrit, not precisely as they're known today, but he taught in both of those languages and, various dialects that were related to them. The Pali tradition is mainly held by the Theravadan practitioners of the fundamental vehicle, and the Sutra path that is more Mahayana, and Tantra is definitely Mahayana. This is more the Sanskrit tradition. So you'll get some differing views from Theravadan practitioners in the Pali tradition about whether or not Tantra was taught by Shakyamuni Buddha. But in our tradition, we 100% believe that it was. He just adopted a different form when teaching it. He adopted the form of Vajradhara when teaching the Tantras. So then we get Guru or Lama. And as most of you know, this is a spiritual guide or teacher, one who shows a disciple the path to liberation and enlightenment. In Tantra, one's teacher is seen as inseparable from the meditational deity and the three jewels of refuge. So then Guru Yoga is this fundamental tantric practice whereby one's guru is seen as identical with the Buddhas, one's personal meditational deity, and the essential nature of one's mind. Okay, so in Tantra, there's a lot of merging, things merging into merging into merging. And in a lot of sadhanas, you'll see even the mantra Zahum Bam Ho. This is kind of the merging mantra, and we might have time to unpack that more later. But what you're trying to think of is, okay, say we're practicing Tara, Tara, green, female form, one leg out, hands in the gestures. Okay, Tara. Tara is the archetypal energy of protection and action. And you really sit with, okay, what do I know of that kind of energy so far in my life? You know, that like leaping to the aid of sentient beings, that absolute control over your own kind of sensory desires, that kind of radiating beauty that puts people at ease, all the things. Okay, that. Now you think my teacher who gave me the Tara empowerment, or my teacher, if you're doing front generation before you have empowerment, you can think my teacher in general in the space in front is taking the aspect of Tara. Yes, so your teacher, who is a human, what you've met, then is sort of taking the shape and form of Tara in order to connect you to that archetypal energy, both that which is latent in you and that is existing in the world. So you're merging guru with deity. Now you're also thinking every single other enlightened mind in the universe is taking the aspect of Tara for you, for this purpose at this time. Because it's not like there's one Tara or that Buddhas are locked into their identities. Any Buddha can be any other Buddha. All Buddhas have all the characteristics of all the other Buddhas. It's like water and waves. So they're kind of taking the shape of something for a particular purpose for our practice. So now more things are merged. You have the guru, the deity, and all other Buddhas all merged together in this image that you're visualizing. And then if you have an empowerment, you add to that also me. Now I'm arising as Tara. I have merged with the guru, all Buddhas, the archetypal energy, and the guru. Does it make sense? I mean, kind of like in a basic way, you're like, that's kind of far out. I don't know what you mean. But I mean, you know, the words of it make sense. Those things are merging together. So this is the essence of Guru Yoga. And again, it's starting with that personal direct relationship you've had with another human being, even if it's only in a classroom setting. And really think of a classroom setting in a Dharma center with a Dharma teacher where your mind has moved, where it wasn't just intellectual, where it wasn't just, that's a cool idea I like to play with, where your heart changed or something struck you. It had the ring of truth, the penny dropped, that feeling that is kind of indescribable, but it's like wisdom met wisdom. And there was resonance. You take that as, that's what I mean by guru. And maybe it was this person that first introduced me to that. Maybe it was my kindergarten teacher, doesn't matter. But now you're kind of holding the guru-ness that you're trying to bring in this really personal relationship to the archetypal energy of the deity. Makes it less abstract, right? It makes it much more personal and direct and conversational even. And you think this wisdom connection, this meeting of minds, knows me so completely and thoroughly, far more than I know myself. And just like we know in the ordinary world, the more that you know someone, the more compassion you have for them. The Buddhas know us so completely, and so they just flood us with compassion. They know how we got like this. Right? They have so much more sympathy than we have for ourselves. They absolutely know how we got this way. Pros and cons, all of it. And all of it dependent arising. So it's like, all of it's your responsibility, none of it's your fault, right? All of it's your responsibility, none of it's your fault, but also the good stuff, wonderful, use it, be happy about it, don't identify with it. It didn't really come from you, it was learned. So the Buddhas know that, they're holding all of that. So you can kind of merge into this whole situation with a kind of a freedom of not feeling like there's a cringe or a need to hide or a need to kind of manage or manipulate or have excuses the way you might with a human flesh and blood guru. Yeah, if you had like a human flesh and blood mentor in an ordinary way, not in a tantric way, part of you might feel some kind of egocentric need to protect yourself and be seen in a certain light. But when you're thinking of the guru as representing and one with all the Buddhas, you can just be open. Does it make sense? And so that kind of openness also brings that deep clarity and relaxation because we don't have all of the panicky fear of all of our ego stuff getting in the way.
Is it helpful to have a picture of that deity, like on, you know, in front of us? And do you think that taking the time to get all of that can be helpful?
You mean just having like a tanka in your house on your altar or something?
Well, a picture in a frame, or a tanka or whatever. But, do you think it helps to look at that while we're doing the sadhana to help us to strengthen the visualization? I mean, do you do that? Is that a common practice?
It's one of those things like the relationship with the guru, where the physical representation is more important in the beginning and it becomes less important as time goes by.
Okay.
Because remember, with all meditations, any visual reference is just a reference. You want to bring it to your mind's eye, not be staring at something physically. So
Okay.
there are some other kinds of meditation and other traditions where you're like looking at a candle or something to develop calm abiding. We don't do that, right? We would, if we wanted to use a candle, we'd look at one, close our eyes, and then bring the memory of the candle to our mind's eye. Yeah. In Buddhist training. So if you have a tanka or a framed picture that is rendered beautifully, like the artist did a really skillful job. I mean, all images are perfect, right? But some artists are less skillful. Lam, yes, we're being careful about our refuge, yes. So what you want to say is, does this visualization make my imagination happy? And if I were to picture it three-dimensionally, would it make my heart happy? So you find a picture that would make your heart happy, and you look at it a lot, and you think of it as one in nature with the guru and one in nature with your own mind. And then eventually you kind of stop needing them.
Okay.
But it does help. I mean, like I had a Buddha statue that I used for my practice since I was like 12 years old. And right now it's hanging out at my parents' house because I know what it looks like. I don't, like looking at it since I was a kid. But, things that are newer and newer practices, you might want to have the picture more regularly to get it stabilized.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Should we have a 5-minute break and then do practice? Yeah, okay. 5 minutes. Okay. So we'll do the more extended version of the Shakyamuni Buddha practice. And then next week, we're going to start with Chenrezig. So if you have any hanging Shakyamuni Buddha questions, we can talk about them at the top of the next session, but then we'll move on. So Shakyamuni Buddha. And as always, just take a minute to get yourself into a comfortable posture. And sort of in the back of your mind, think, trying to bring in some of these ideas of the Buddha that we're working with, being Shakyamuni Buddha, being in some way one in nature or inseparable from that guru-ness or teacher-ness that you might have experienced in your life. And visualize straight in front of you at about the height of the forehead and about a body length away. Visualize Guru Shakyamuni Buddha sitting on a throne. Everything is in the nature of light. So first visualize the beautiful throne, very large and square and adorned with many jewels. The throne is raised up by 8 white snow lions, 2 at each corner. The snow lions look a little like Chinese lions, but with white fur and a green mane and tail. And these are not statues, but living, breathing animals. They are in reality manifestations of bodhisattvas, the holy beings who have attained bodhicitta. They also signify the wisdom of the Buddha, because all of the animals, snow lions, are the only ones that have absolutely no fear at all. This is shown by the droopy ears. All other animals must keep their ears pricked up for danger, but the snow lion has no such need. So stabilizing the throne and the snow lions. Radiant, made of transparent light. On the throne is a large, beautiful open lotus, upon which is a sun and moon seat. These are very radiant, very bright, with the colors of the sun and moon respectively, but flat, like discs or cushions. These three objects, the lotus, sun, and moon, represent the attainment of the three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, the lotus; emptiness, the sun; and bodhicitta, the moon. Stabilizing those, imbuing them with meaning, seated on this is the omniscient mind of all the Buddhas, manifested as Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, who has attained these realizations. You can see the Buddha as the absolute Guru. The Buddha is in the aspect of a monk. You should not see his body as something solid like a bronze or plaster statue, but made of radiant golden light, representing his holy mind. Light rays radiate out from it. He wears the saffron robes of a monk. The robes don't actually touch his body. He is seated in the Vajra or full lotus position, with the feet resting on the opposite thighs, soles upward. The palm of his right hand rests on his right knee, the fingers extended down and touching the moon cushion. This is called the earth controlling mudra, signifying that he has great control and that he is in touch with reality. His left hand is in his lap in the meditation mudra, holding a bowl filled with nectar. The nectar is medicine, capable of curing all the disturbing emotions, traditionally called the maras. It has the power to control death, as well as purify the mind and body aggregates caused by karma and delusion, from which all suffering arises. This bowl of nectar is not there to purify Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's delusions. He is already entirely free from them, but to purify ours. It is medicine for us. So stabilizing the mudras. Cloth, the legs, the bowl. Imbuing them with meaning. His face is very beautiful, with smiling, compassionate, elongated eyes and a gentle look, just like a loving father gazing at you and at the same time all sentient beings. It is a face you can never tire of looking at, no matter how much you look. You can always look more. It is just so beautiful and magnificent. Just by seeing it brings incredible bliss. His look seems to tell you, my child, if you want to be free from suffering, I will guide you. He has long ears and reddish lips. His hair is blue-black, with each hair individually curled to the right. At his forehead, between his eyebrows, there is a curl. It is unique in that it can be stretched out and it naturally curls again, like rubber. Each feature has significance, each part of the 32 major signs and 80 minor exemplifications of an enlightened being. Rays of light emanate out from every pore of the Buddha's holy body, touching every part of the universe. These rays are actually countless tiny emanations of the Buddha, going out to all sentient beings. And so stabilizing the visualization, but particularly what it represents. The enlightened mind of all the Buddhas, not just Shakyamuni Buddha. The enlightened mind of your own root guru and all other gurus. And a representation of your own potential. And so holding Shakyamuni Buddha in your mind's eye, now we do the refuge in bodhicitta prayer. Sangye chudon sogi chunam lai janchu padu dani kapsuchi dagi jin sogi pe sonam gi rola penchu sangye drupa sho sangye chudon sogi chunam lai janchu padu dani kapsuchi dagi jin sogi pe sonam gi Rola Penche Sange Drupa Shom. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merit of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And repeat the prayer 2 more times in your mind, letting it connect. Seven limbs. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence, and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. And then expand the visualization of the Buddha to include all sentient beings around you. And so you can think on your left side is your mother or your mother figure, whether living or dead, whether you had a good relationship with her or not, seated next to you. surrounded by all your female relatives or feminine presenting relatives in your life. Grandmothers and aunts, cousins and nieces, daughters. Or those you relate to as such, filling the space to your left. And then on the other side, on your right, is your father or your father figure, whether you have a good relationship with him or not, whether living or dead, surrounded by all your male or male presenting relatives, grandfathers, uncles, nephews, cousins, sons, or those you relate to as relatives. And then directly behind you is someone who is not related, but is very close to you. Maybe your best friend, or your spouse, a mentor, but still a sentient being. Directly behind you. And filling all the space behind you is all of your other friends, those people dear to your heart, whether they're living or dead. And then in front of you, facing you, is an enemy. If you need to position them at some distance to feel safe, then do so. Someone who has hurt you or hurt someone that you love, or someone who is doing great evil in this world. Someone that you have aversion towards. And behind them, also facing you, are all the people you have difficulty with. Who you're triggered by. Who frustrate and annoy you. Or with whom you have fear or anger, hatred. All the difficult people, whether they're still alive or not. Even if they're in your life only through the news, some form of politician or public figure that enters into your mind regularly. Try and imagine all of them there in front. And then around all of them are all other sentient beings who in this life are strangers, although in other lives you've been close to many times. And you can imagine them all in human form, even though some are other species, some in realms you cannot see. Picture them as people filling the rest of the space. Then think, I have received this perfect human rebirth, and I have met both the infallible teachings and the infallible teachers who can lead me on the path to enlightenment, releasing me from all suffering and allowing me to attain ultimate happiness. This is not so with all these other kind mother sentient beings who have been my mother countless times and have been so kind to me. In order to help them be free from their terrible suffering, I will do this meditation and attain the state of Buddhahood myself. In request from your heart, please purify me and all sentient beings from the delusions, obscurations, sicknesses, and afflictions caused by external harmful spirits. Visualize a stream of rays of white nectar coming from Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's heart, flowing into you, entering through the crown of your head. And as it flows into you, repeat this prayer 3 times. To the Guru, Founder, Bhagawan, Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni Buddha, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Please grant me your blessings. To the Guru, Founder, Bhagawan, Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni Buddha, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Please grant me your blessings. To the Guru, Founder, Bhagawan, Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni Buddha, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Please grant me your blessings. And now recite Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra 7 times, and then we'll finish Shamala silently under our breath, keeping that purifying visualization of white light. Tai tai hon hone mone maha munaye soha. Tai tai hon 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 mone maha munaye soha. And continue the mantra under your breath. And as you recite the mantra, feel the radiant rays of white nectar slowly filling your body, completely purifying all your delusions. Feel they're pouring strongly into you, like when you stand under a strong shower. As soon as the rays touch and flow into your body, a sensation of infinite mental and physical bliss fills you. Tayata muni muni ma muni exam. Feel your body is completely full of radiant white light. And think all my delusions and sickness, as well as all the afflictions caused by external spirits, are completely purified. And then shift and visualize stream of rays of golden nectar coming from Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's heart, flowing into you, entering through the crown of your head. This light is the essence of the Buddha's holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. As your body fills with this light, feel infinitely blissful mentally and physically. Again, say the mantra. Taya ta hum hune hune aha munae soha. Taya ta hum hune hune maha 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 munae soha. Continuing the visualization, accumulating merit, blessings. Taya ta om muni muni ma muni soha. So feel that you're completely filled with the Buddha's radiant golden light. And you've attained all the qualities of the Buddha's holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. And in the case of Shakyamuni Buddha, even if you've never had the empowerment, it's okay to see yourself as Shakyamuni Buddha. So take that moment to take the result as the path. Identify as the Buddha. And the Buddha in front, the snow lions dissolve into the throne into the lotus into the sun and moon. They dissolve into Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, who comes to the crown of your head, melts into light, dissolves into your body. Feel that all wrong conceptions are completely destroyed. Everything becomes completely empty. Your mind becomes the blissful, omniscient mind of the Buddha. Feel that you are the Buddha. Light beams radiate from your holy body. At the tip of each light beam is a tiny Shakyamuni Buddha. All these Shakyamuni Buddhas enter and absorb into each and every sentient being, purifying all their suffering and its causes, delusion and negative karma. To the left, to your mother, etc. To the right, your father, etc. Behind, your friends. In front, your enemies. All the way out to all the strangers. Buddha's going and absorbing, purifying all of them. Then the light beams with Shakyamuni Buddhas at their tips return and absorb into you. And rejoice by thinking how wonderful it is that I've enlightened all sentient beings. And make the dedication. By the merits of having done this meditation practice, may I attain the enlightened state of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha and lead all other sentient beings to that enlightened state. Remembering the emptiness of the agent, the action, the object. They all lack inherent existence because they dependently arise. Okay. So thanks everyone. And I really recommend reading pages 19 to 22 if you're curious about the meaning of the mantra. There's a really nice, clear explanation of the meaning of the mantra on those pages. And in a couple of days, I'll send you the handouts from today, and that will also have that section on them. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, you'll still get that little section. So I'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Venerable. Have a nice night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Venerable.
Thank you,
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.